Welcome, gentle traveler, to a place where the world softens at its edges, where the sea meets the sky in whispers of foam and starlight. Tonight, let the weight of the day slip from your shoulders like silk sliding across skin. Let your breathing find its natural rhythm, slow, deep, effortless, as the evening wraps itself around you in layers of peace. Feel yourself sinking deeper into comfort, deeper into stillness, as if you are floating on calm waters beneath a sky full of dreaming stars. Tonight's story comes from ancient shores, whispered across centuries by fishermen who cast their nets into moonlit waters. It is a tale of mystery and magic, of wishes hidden in bronze vessels, and of wisdom that grows quietly in the heart. It speaks of patience and kindness, of second chances, and the gentle courage it takes to show mercy when power is in your hands. Let yourself drift now, into a time long ago, to a city by the sea where the air smelled of salt and spices, where the waves sang lullabies against the shore, and where one simple fisherman would discover that even the smallest life can hold the greatest magic. Breathe slowly. Let the story carry you like a boat on gentle tides. In a time beyond memory, in a land where the sun painted the sky gold each morning and silver each night, there lived a fisherman. He was neither young nor old, neither rich nor poor, just a simple man with weathered hands and a kind heart. Each day, as the world still slept in darkness, he would rise from his small house by the shore, take his worn fishing net, and walk down to the edge of the sea. The sea was his companion, his teacher, his provider. He knew its moods, when it sparkled with welcome, when it churned with warning. He knew the feel of sand beneath his bare feet, the way the morning breeze carried the scent of distant islands, the sound of seabirds calling as they circled overhead in graceful arcs. The fisherman had a practice, a ritual that ordered his days with gentle discipline. He would cast his net into the sea only 4 times each morning. 4 times, no more, no less. This was his way, a way of respecting the ocean's gifts, of not asking for more than he needed, of trusting that what came to him was meant to be his. On this particular morning, the sky was the color of pearls, soft and luminous, as dawn slowly painted the horizon with strokes of rose and amber. The fisherman stood at the water's edge, feeling the cool wavelets kiss his feet, feeling the weight of his net in his hands. He breathed in the salt air, let his shoulders relax, and with a practiced motion, graceful as a dancer, smooth as a blessing, he cast his net wide across the surface of the sea. The net sailed through the air, spreading like wings, then settled on the water with barely a whisper. The fisherman waited, patient as the stones that lined the shore, as the net sank slowly into the blue-green depths. He watched the ripples expand outward in perfect circles, watched them fade into stillness. Then, with steady hands, he began to pull. The net felt heavy, a good sign, he thought. His heart lifted with hope. Perhaps today would bring silver fish, enough to sell at the market, enough to buy bread and dates and oil for his lamp. He pulled steadily, hand over hand, the rope rough and familiar against his palms. But when the net emerged from the water, dripping and glistening in the early light, the fisherman's hope dimmed like a candle in wind. There were no fish. Instead, tangled in the mesh, was the carcass of a donkey, long dead, heavy, useless. The smell was unpleasant, and the sight made the fisherman sigh deeply. Still, he did not complain. He simply untangled the sorry burden from his net, let it sink back into the water where it belonged, and cleaned his net with careful hands. The sea gives what it gives, he thought. This is the way of things. He cast his net a second time. Again, the net spread across the water like a blessing. Again, it sank into the mysterious depths where shadows moved and light played tricks. Again, the fisherman pulled, steady and patient, letting his breathing match the rhythm of his movements. Inhale as he gathered the rope, exhale as he pulled it toward shore. This time, the net felt even heavier. Surely, he thought, Surely this must be fish. His arms strained with the weight, his shoulders bent to the task. Slowly, slowly, the net rose from the depths. But when it broke the surface, hope turned again to disappointment. No fish swam within the mesh. Instead, he had caught nothing but a large earthen jar, broken and filled with sand and mud. Water streamed from its cracked sides. It was worthless, fit only to be discarded. The fisherman stood for a moment, looking at the broken jar, feeling the ache in his arms and back. Another man might have grown angry, might have cursed the sea or his fortune. But this fisherman simply breathed out his disappointment like releasing a breath held too long. He cleaned his net once more, shaking out the sand, rinsing it in the clear shallows where small fish darted like silver needles in the light. The morning was growing brighter now. The sun had climbed higher, and the sky had shifted from pearl to pale blue, soft as a baby's blanket. The fisherman looked out across the endless expanse of water, at the line where sea met sky in perfect peace, and he felt a strange calm settle over him. He cast his net a third time. The motion was the same, practiced, graceful, unhurried. The net flew, settled, sank. The waiting was the same, patient, trusting, accepting. The pulling was the same, steady, rhythmic, breathing with each movement. But this time, when the net emerged, the fisherman's heart sank completely. Caught in the mesh were nothing but bones and broken pottery, shells and shards, the refuse and rubbish that sometimes collects in certain corners of the sea. No fish, no treasure, nothing of value. For a moment, just a moment, the fisherman felt the weight of discouragement settle on him like a heavy cloak. His family waited at home. His children needed food. His wife needed coins for flour and cloth. What would he tell them? How would he provide? But then he remembered his practice. 4 times. He had cast his net only 3 times. There was still one more chance. One more gift the sea might give. One more possibility floating in the realm of the unknown. He cleaned his net one last time, his movements slow and meditative, almost like a prayer. He stood at the edge of the water, feeling his feet sink slightly into the wet sand, feeling the sun warm on his back, feeling the breeze lift his hair. He closed his eyes for just a moment, centered himself, let go of expectation and disappointment alike. Then he cast his net for the 4th and final time. It sailed across the water, perfect and beautiful in its arc. It settled on the surface like a blessing. It sank into the deep blue mystery. And the fisherman waited, his heart quiet now, his mind clear, his expectations released into the hands of fate. When he began to pull, he felt immediately that this time was different. The net was heavy, yes, but with a different kind of weight. Not the dead weight of a carcass or the dull weight of rocks and pottery. This weight felt somehow alive, somehow significant. The fisherman's pulse quickened, but he kept his movements steady, careful, respectful of whatever gift the sea was offering. Slowly, inch by inch, the net rose from the depths. The fisherman could see something large taking shape beneath the surface, something dark and solid and mysterious. His breath caught in his throat. His hands trembled slightly as he pulled. And then, breaking through the surface with a splash and cascade of glittering droplets, came the net. And within it, caught securely in its mesh, was a vessel unlike anything the fisherman had ever seen. It was a bottle, or perhaps a vase, or a jar, made of brass that had turned green with age and the kiss of salt water. It was large, almost as long as the fisherman's arm, sealed at the top with a heavy lead stopper. The stopper bore markings, symbols and signs that the fisherman could not read, strange writing that seemed to shimmer in the morning light. The fisherman's disappointment melted away, replaced by curiosity and a strange sense of wonder. This was no ordinary object. He could feel it somehow, the way you can sometimes feel when something important is about to happen, when the world is about to shift in some small but significant way. He pulled the net fully onto the shore and carefully untangled the brass vessel from its mesh. It was heavy, much heavier than it looked, and cold to the touch despite the warm morning sun. He turned it over in his hands, examining it from every angle. The craftsmanship was exquisite. Even beneath the layers of corrosion, he could see intricate patterns etched into the metal, designs of leaves and flowers and strange creatures. This, he thought, this I can sell. A wealthy merchant might pay good money for such an unusual antiquity. A collector might prize it for its age and beauty. His spirits lifted. Perhaps the morning would not be lost after all. But then his curiosity grew stronger than his practical thoughts. What was inside? Why was it sealed so carefully? The lead stopper seemed very deliberately placed, very intentionally secured. The markings on it looked almost like a warning, or perhaps a spell. The fisherman sat down on the sand, holding the vessel in his lap. The beach was empty, except for the seabirds, who walked along the tide line seeking their own breakfast, calling to each other in voices that sounded almost like laughter. The waves whispered against the shore, soft, rhythmic, peaceful. The world felt suspended in a moment of perfect stillness. After a long moment of consideration, the fisherman made his decision. He would open the vessel. Perhaps there was treasure inside, gold coins, precious gems, pearls like moonlight. Or perhaps there was nothing but seawater and disappointment. But he would never know unless he looked. He took his knife from his belt, a simple tool, worn with use, sharp enough for cutting rope and cleaning fish. He wedged the blade carefully around the edge of the lead stopper, working patiently, gently, trying not to damage the brass vessel or the mysterious seal. The stopper was stubborn, held tight by age and intention. The fisherman worked slowly, without frustration, with the same patience he brought to mending nets and waiting for tides. Slowly, slowly, the stopper began to loosen. The fisherman felt it shift, felt the seal begin to break, and then, with a sudden pop that made him start, the stopper came free. For a moment, nothing happened. The fisherman peered into the mouth of the vessel, but it was dark inside, too dark to see anything. He tipped it slightly, expecting water to pour out, or sand, or perhaps the glint of gold. Instead, what emerged was smoke. Not the smoke of fire, not gray or black or acrid. This smoke was different. It was thick and white, almost luminous, and it seemed to glow from within with a pale, eerie light. It poured from the mouth of the vessel in a steady stream, not dispersing as smoke should, but coiling and gathering, rising upward in a column that grew taller and taller and taller. The fisherman scrambled backward, his heart suddenly pounding, his breath catching in his throat. The smoke continued to pour forth, impossible amounts of smoke, far more than could possibly have been contained in the vessel. It rose into the air, spreading and thickening, taking on shape and substance, becoming solid and real. And then, as the fisherman watched with wide eyes and trembling limbs, the smoke transformed into a form that made his blood run cold. It was a genie, a djinn of enormous size and terrible appearance. The creature towered above the beach, as tall as the masts of the great ships that sometimes anchored in the harbor, as broad as a house, as solid as stone, yet somehow still shimmering with the memory of smoke. Its body was massive and muscular, its face fierce and frightening, with eyes like burning coals and a mouth full of teeth like daggers. The fisherman fell to his knees, unable to move, unable to speak, unable to do anything but stare at the impossible being that loomed above him, blocking out the sun, casting a shadow that seemed to carry cold with it. The genie looked down at the fisherman, and its face twisted into an expression of such rage, such fury, such terrible anger, that the fisherman felt his heart might stop from fear alone. "Prepare to die!" the genie roared, and its voice was like thunder, like the crashing of storms, like the grinding of mountains. "Prepare to meet your end, mortal, for I am going to kill you!" The fisherman's mouth went dry, his hands shook, but somewhere in the deepest part of his being, beneath the fear, a small voice of reason still whispered, He found his voice, though it trembled like a leaf in wind. "Great Jinn," he said, his words barely more than a whisper. "Why would you kill me? What have I done to deserve death? I have just freed you from your prison. I have released you from the vessel that held you captive. Should you not thank me rather than threaten me?" The genie's eyes blazed with fury. It crossed its massive arms across its chest, and the motion created a wind that made the fisherman's clothes flap and his hair blow wild. "Foolish mortal," the genie said, and though its voice was still terrible, there was something almost like bitter laughter in it. "You know nothing of my story. You know nothing of my imprisonment or my rage. Listen then before you die, and know the reason for your fate." The fisherman sat frozen, his fear so great he could barely breathe, as the genie began to speak. "I am one of the jinn," the genie said, "a being of fire and air, created before your kind walked the earth. In ages past, I rebelled against the great King Solomon, peace be upon him, who ruled over all jinn and commanded us by the power of his ring. I refused to bow. I refused to serve. I refused to submit to his will. And so Solomon, in his wisdom and his power, had me imprisoned in that brass vessel. The seal you broke bore his mark, a seal of power that no jinn could break from within. I was trapped, locked away, thrown into the depths of the sea, left to my prison for all eternity." The genie's voice grew darker, heavier, filled with centuries of rage and madness. "For the first 100 years of my imprisonment, I swore that whoever freed me, I would make them rich beyond measure. I would grant them 3 wishes. I would fill their lives with gold and jewels and palaces and power. But no one came. For the second 100 years, I swore that whoever freed me, I would reveal to them the hidden treasures of the earth, would show them where precious things lay buried, would grant them knowledge and wisdom beyond mortal understanding. But still, no one came. For the third 100 years, I swore that whoever freed me, I would make them a king, would give them authority over nations, would grant them one wish, whatever they desired most in all the world. But still, no one came. The genie's eyes burned brighter, and its voice became a growl that seemed to shake the very air. And then, after centuries upon centuries of imprisonment, after ages of darkness and silence and suffocation in that brass prison, my promises turned to rage. I grew mad with hatred, and I swore that whoever freed me, I would kill them. I would show no mercy. I would grant no wishes. I would simply take their miserable life and end it, and that would be my only pleasure. The genie leaned down, its terrible face close to the fisherman, its breath hot and smelling of ancient smoke and fury. "And so you see, fisherman, your kindness is wasted. Your service is meaningless. You have freed me, yes, but your reward is death. Now choose the manner of your dying, for I grant you that much mercy at least." The fisherman's mind raced like birds fleeing a storm. Fear flooded his body, but alongside it, something else began to grow. A strange calm, a clarity of thought, a wisdom born of necessity. He had heard many stories in his life, sitting by fires with other fishermen, listening to travelers and merchants spin their tales. And in those stories, he had learned that jinn, for all their power, could sometimes be outwitted by clever words and patient thinking. He took a slow breath, feeling the air fill his lungs, feeling his heart beat steady and strong despite the terror that gripped him. When he spoke, his voice was calmer, steadier than before. "Great and powerful jinn," he said carefully, "I hear your words, and I understand your anger. But before I accept my fate, I must confess something to you." The genie's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "What confession?" The fisherman gestured to the brass vessel lying on the sand beside him. "I confess, great jinn, that I do not believe you were truly imprisoned in this bottle. How could a being of your size, tall as mountains, broad as palaces, how could you possibly fit inside such a small vessel? It seems impossible. I think you are deceiving me. I think you are a djinn who happened to be nearby when I opened this bottle, and now you mean to kill me for sport, pretending it is for some ancient reason." The genie's face transformed from rage to insulted pride. It drew itself up to its full, terrible height, and its voice boomed across the beach. "You dare doubt me? You dare question my word? I, who am ancient beyond your comprehension, who existed before your grandfather's grandfather was born. I was indeed imprisoned in that vessel. I was confined in that brass prison for centuries beyond counting." The fisherman kept his face calm, though his hands still trembled. He shook his head slowly. "Forgive me, great djinn, but I cannot believe it. The bottle is small, no larger than my arm. You are vast, larger than any building I have ever seen. The laws of nature do not bend so far. I think you are lying." The genie's fury now was mixed with something else, wounded pride, the offense of being disbelieved. "I do not lie. I am a djinn. We do not speak falsehoods about such things. I was in that bottle. My entire being, all of my power, all of my essence, compressed and contained by the seal of Solomon." The fisherman shrugged, a small gesture but deliberate. "I cannot believe what seems impossible, unless—" He paused, as if the thought had just occurred to him. "Unless you could show me. If you could demonstrate how you fit inside the vessel, then I would believe you, and I would accept my death without protest, knowing that I died at the hands of a truly powerful being who does not lie." The genie stared at the fisherman for a long moment. The creature's eyes blazed, its massive chest heaved with offended breath. Pride warred with caution in its ancient mind. But pride, as it so often does, won. "You wish to see?" the genie roared. "You wish for proof? Then watch, mortal, and witness the power of the djinn." And with those words, the genie's solid form began to shimmer and dissolve. The massive body softened, became translucent, transformed back into smoke, thick white smoke that glowed with inner light. The smoke began to swirl and move, gathering itself into a spiral, a cyclone, a whirlwind that spun faster and faster. The fisherman watched, barely breathing, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. The smoke spiraled downward, condensing, compressing, flowing like water toward the open mouth of the brass vessel. It poured into the bottle, all of that vast smoke, all of that enormous presence, all of that terrible power, streaming into the small opening, disappearing inside, impossible, and yet happening before the fisherman's own eyes. In moments, it was done. The beach was empty except for the fisherman and the seabirds. The smoke was gone, the genie was gone, and from the open mouth of the brass vessel, a voice called out, muffled but still recognizable, still proud. "Do you see now, fisherman? Do you believe? I was inside just as I said. Now release me again and accept your fate." But the fisherman, his hands moving with speed born of pure survival instinct, snatched up the lead stopper and jammed it back into the mouth of the vessel. He pressed it down hard, sealing it tight, his fingers working frantically to secure it in place. From inside the bottle came a roar of rage that made the brass vibrate in the fisherman's hands. "What are you doing? Release me! You gave your word! You said you would accept your death!" The fisherman held the vessel tightly, his heart still racing, but now relief was flooding through him, sweet as water after thirst. "I said I would accept my death if you proved you were inside the bottle. You have proved it. But I never said I would let you out again to kill me." "Treachery!" the genie's voice screamed from within the brass prison, though the sound was muffled now, less terrible, almost pitiful. "Deception! Trickery! Release me at once!" The fisherman stood, brushing the sand from his clothes, holding the vessel carefully. His fear was fading now, replaced by a strange mixture of relief and sadness. "You swore to kill me," he said quietly to the bottle. "You, who lived for centuries, who knew the world before I was born, you learned only hatred from your imprisonment. You met kindness with cruelty. You met freedom with murder. I am sorry for your suffering, great Jinn. I truly am. But I cannot allow you to kill me. I have a family who needs me. I have children who wait for their father to come home. He looked out at the sea, at the waves rolling eternally to shore, at the horizon where water met sky. The sun was fully risen now, bright and warm, chasing away the last shadows of morning. The fisherman took a deep breath of the salt air, feeling grateful to be alive, grateful for the wisdom that had come to him in his moment of greatest need. I will take you back, he said to the vessel, walking toward the water's edge. I will return you to the sea, and perhaps, in another 1,000 years, someone else will find you. Perhaps by then, you will have learned a different lesson. Perhaps by then you will remember that mercy is met with mercy, and kindness with kindness. He waded into the shallows, feeling the cool water lap around his ankles, his knees. He drew back his arm, preparing to throw the vessel as far as he could into the deep water. But then, from inside the brass prison, the genie's voice came again, and this time it was different. The rage was gone. The fury had faded. What remained was something else, something that sounded almost like pleading. "Wait!" the voice said. "Wait, fisherman, please!" The fisherman paused, the vessel heavy in his hands, the water swirling around his legs. "Please!" the genie said again, and now its voice was quiet, weary, stripped of all its terrible power. "Please do not throw me back into the darkness. I beg you. I was wrong." The fisherman stood very still, holding the vessel, feeling the sun on his back and the water around his legs, listening to the voice of the ancient being who had threatened his life just moments before. "I spent so long in darkness," the genie continued, and its voice was heavy with centuries of sorrow. "So long alone, so long with nothing but my rage to keep me company. It consumed me. It became all that I was. I forgot. I forgot what it was to speak to another being. I forgot what it was to see the sky. I forgot everything except anger." The fisherman closed his eyes, feeling something shift in his heart. "When you freed me," the genie said softly, "the first thing I felt was rage. But now, trapped again, I realize what I nearly did. You gave me freedom, and I repaid you with death threats. You showed me kindness, and I showed you only cruelty. I have become a monster, fisherman. My imprisonment made me into something worse than I ever was before." The fisherman opened his eyes and looked down at the brass vessel in his hands. His first instinct was suspicion. Was this another trick? Another deception? But something in the genie's voice, something in its tone, rang with truth. He had heard false apologies before, and he had heard real ones. This, he felt in his bones, was real. "If I release you," the fisherman said slowly, carefully, "you will kill me. You swore an oath." "I break my oath," the genie said, and there was wonder in its voice, as if it was discovering something new about itself. "I break my wicked oath and make a new one. If you release me, fisherman, I swear by all that is sacred, by the name of Solomon who imprisoned me, by the very essence of my being, I will not harm you. Not now, not ever. Instead," the voice paused, then continued with growing conviction, "Instead, I will thank you. I will reward you. I will grant you a gift of your choosing." The fisherman stood in the gentle waves, thinking. The sun warmed his shoulders. Seabirds called overhead. The world continued its peaceful morning, indifferent to the momentous choice being made on this small stretch of shore. He thought of his children, waiting for him to bring food. He thought of his wife, hoping he would return with coins for the market. He thought of the hard years they had faced, the struggles, the constant worry of how to survive. But he also thought of mercy. He thought of second chances. He thought of how easily any soul can be twisted by suffering, how quickly goodness can be forgotten in darkness. He thought of forgiveness, and the strange courage it takes to trust when trust seems foolish. The fisherman waded back to shore. He sat down on the sand, still holding the vessel. He looked at it for a long time, at the ancient brass, at the mysterious markings, at the seal that held such terrible power inside. Then, with a prayer on his lips and hope in his heart, he worked the stopper loose once more. The smoke poured forth again, white and glowing, rising into the morning air. It gathered and coiled and transformed, and once more the genie stood upon the beach, but different now. Still large, still powerful, but somehow less terrible. Its face was no longer twisted with rage. Its eyes, though still bright, no longer burned with fury. Instead, it looked down at the fisherman with something that might have been gratitude, or wonder, or perhaps simply relief. The genie stood silent for a moment, as if remembering how to speak without anger. Then it bowed its great head to the fisherman, a gesture of respect, of acknowledgement, of genuine thanks. "You are either the bravest man alive," the genie said softly, "or the most foolish. I cannot decide which, but I can say this: you are the kindest. You have shown me mercy I do not deserve. You have given me a chance I had no right to expect. For this, I thank you. Truly, deeply, I thank you." The fisherman stood, brushing sand from his simple clothes. He felt suddenly very tired, as if the fear and tension of the past hour had drained all his strength. But he also felt something else, a quiet joy, a peaceful satisfaction, the feeling that comes from making a hard choice and finding it was the right one. "I am glad," the fisherman said simply, "that you have found your way back from darkness. We all deserve a second chance, even ancient jinn who make terrible mistakes." The genie smiled, and it was strange to see such a fearsome face transform with genuine warmth. "You are wise beyond your simple appearance, fisherman, and now I must honor my new oath. I will grant you a reward. Tell me what you wish, and if it is within my power, I will give it to you." The fisherman thought for a moment. He could ask for wealth, gold and jewels that would end his family's struggles forever. He could ask for power, a palace, servants, influence, authority. He could ask for magic, supernatural abilities, long life, secret knowledge. But looking at the genie, at this being who had suffered so terribly and learned such hard lessons, the fisherman realized what he truly wanted. "I wish," he said quietly, "for you to be free, truly free, not bound to grant's wishes or serve anyone, not trapped in bottles or bound by ancient seals, just free, to go where you will, to live as you choose, to find peace after all your long suffering." The genie stared at the fisherman in absolute silence. Something glimmered in its ancient eyes, something that might have been tears if jinn could weep. "That is," the genie's voice was thick, rough with emotion, "that is the kindest thing anyone has ever said to me in all my long existence. But I cannot accept it as your reward. Freedom is already mine, thanks to you. You must ask for something else, something for yourself, something that will help you and your family." The fisherman smiled gently. "Very well, then I wish for this, that whenever I cast my net into the sea, it will bring up exactly what I need that day. Not always fish, not always treasure, but whatever I truly need to provide for my family and live a good life. Some days that might be fish to sell, some days it might be something else, but always what I need." The genie considered this, then nodded slowly. "It is a wise wish, neither greedy nor short-sighted. It is a wish that respects the balance of things, that asks for enough but not too much. I grant it gladly." The genie raised one massive hand, and the air around the fisherman seemed to shimmer slightly, as if reality itself was being gently rewritten. The fisherman felt a warmth spread through him, a sense of rightness, of blessing. "It is done," the genie said. "Your net will serve you well, fisherman, and more than that, I give you this." The genie reached down and touched the brass vessel lying on the sand. Instantly, it transformed. The green, corroded brass became bright gold, polished and gleaming in the sunlight. The rough surface became smooth and covered with precious gems, rubies and emeralds and sapphires that sparkled like captured stars. "Sell this," the genie said. "It will bring you enough wealth to ease your struggles while your blessed nets provide for you. Consider it a gift from one friend to another, for that is what you have been to me, fisherman. A friend when I deserved only to be feared." The fisherman picked up the transformed vessel, marveling at its beauty and weight. "Thank you," he said softly. "Thank you for this gift, and thank you for choosing mercy over anger. You have made a hard journey, from darkness back to light." The genie stood tall, looking out across the sea, at the vast expanse of blue stretching to the horizon. "I have much to think about," it said quietly. "Many years to make sense of, many lessons to learn all over again. But I will begin that journey now, thanks to you." The genie looked back at the fisherman one last time. "If you ever need me, truly need me, stand at the shore at sunset and call my name 3 times. I will hear you wherever I am, and I will come. This, I promise, a promise made freely, born of gratitude, not compulsion." The genie spoke its name, a sound like wind through canyons, like fire crackling, like water rushing over stones, and the fisherman committed it to memory. Then, with a final bow of respect, the genie transformed once more into smoke. But this time, the smoke did not pour into a vessel. Instead, it rose into the sky, graceful and free, catching the sunlight, shimmering with colors, rose and gold and silver and blue. It spiraled upward, dancing on the wind, spreading across the sky like a blessing, like a prayer, like a soul finally released from bondage. The fisherman watched until the last wisps of smoke had faded into the endless blue, until nothing remained but the memory of what had happened, and the golden vessel in his hands, and the quiet knowledge that he had done something good, something right, something that would matter beyond his own small life. He gathered his net, picked up the precious vessel, and turned toward home. The sun was fully risen now, the day stretching before him, full of ordinary tasks and simple joys. His feet left prints in the wet sand, prints that would be washed away by the next tide, as all marks of our passing are eventually washed away, leaving only the stories we tell and the kindness we showed and the choices we made when it would have been easier to choose differently. And so the fisherman walked home, carrying a golden vessel under one arm and dragging his blessed net behind him, while overhead the seabirds called and the waves whispered their eternal secrets to the shore. And somewhere far away, a freed genie looked out at a world it had nearly forgotten, seeing it now with new eyes, with gratitude, with wonder, with the precious gift of a second chance. The fisherman's wife met him at the door of their small house, her face brightening when she saw what he carried. His children ran to him, laughing, hugging his legs, asking what adventure the morning had brought. And the fisherman smiled at his family, grateful beyond words for the chance to see their faces again, to hold them close, to have this ordinary, extraordinary life. That evening, after the golden vessel had been sold to a wealthy merchant for a sum that made the fisherman's wife weep with joy and disbelief, after a feast had been prepared with good bread and honey and fruits, after the children had been tucked into their beds with full bellies and happy hearts, the fisherman walked back down to the shore. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose and deep purple. The sea was calm, reflecting the colors like a mirror. The fisherman stood at the water's edge, feeling the cool evening breeze on his face, listening to the gentle music of waves. He thought about the genie, and about freedom, and about how easy it is to become trapped, not just in brass vessels sealed with ancient magic, but in anger, in bitterness, in grudges held so long they become part of who we are. He thought about mercy and second chances and the courage it takes to forgive. And he thought about himself, about his simple life, about how he was neither rich nor powerful nor famous, just a fisherman with weathered hands and a kind heart. But today, he had saved a life, or perhaps saved a soul. Today, he had made a choice that mattered. Today, he had been exactly who he was meant to be. The stars began to appear, one by one, like distant candles being lit in the deepening blue. The fisherman breathed in the salt air, felt peace settle over him like a blanket, felt gratitude fill his heart until it seemed almost too full to contain. Tomorrow he would cast his net again, and it would bring up what he needed, fish, perhaps, or something else unexpected. The sea would provide, as it always had, as it always would. The days would continue their gentle rhythm, work and rest, struggle and joy, the ordinary magic of a life well lived. But tonight, as the world softened into dusk and the first stars blazed bright above the darkening sea, the fisherman simply stood and breathed and felt thankful, thankful for wisdom, for mercy, for second chances, for kindness both given and received, for the strange and beautiful ways that fate weaves our lives together, human and jinn, mortal and immortal, all of us seeking the same thing in the end: freedom, forgiveness, and the chance to become better than we were. And the sea whispered its approval against the shore, eternal and knowing, keeping all the secrets of the deep, holding all the stories of all the fishermen who had ever cast their nets into its mysterious waters, waiting patiently for tomorrow, when the dance would begin again, the dance of chance and choice, of patience and reward, of simple lives touched by extraordinary magic. The fisherman turned and walked home, his heart at peace, his soul at rest, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. In the days that followed, the fisherman's life changed in small but profound ways, like a river altering its course by a few gentle degrees, creating an entirely new landscape over time. Each morning, as dawn painted the sky in soft colors, pearl and rose, lavender and gold, the fisherman would rise from his bed and walk down to the shore. His net was still the same simple net, woven from ordinary rope, mended in places where it had torn. But it was blessed now, touched by magic, infused with a promise. And the blessing held true. Each time he cast his net, it brought up exactly what he needed. Some days, as he had hoped, it was filled with silver fish, beautiful creatures that gleamed in the sunlight, fresh and perfect, that sold quickly at the market for good prices. Other days, it brought up different treasures. Once, a string of pearls caught in the mesh, lustrous and valuable. Another time, a piece of amber with an ancient insect preserved inside, which a traveling scholar purchased for more than the fisherman had earned in a month. Once, it brought up nothing but seaweed of a particular kind that a healer needed desperately for medicine and paid handsomely for. The fisherman never became wealthy in the way of merchants or princes, but he never worried again. His family always had enough food, enough clothing, enough warmth and comfort. His children grew strong and healthy. His wife sang as she worked, and the fisherman himself felt a deep contentment that no amount of gold could have purchased. But more than the material blessings, something else had changed. The story of the fisherman and the genie spread, as all good stories do, passing from mouth to mouth like a gift handed around a circle. People heard how the simple fisherman had outwitted a powerful jinn, how he had shown mercy when he had every right to seek revenge, how he had been rewarded for his kindness and wisdom. And so people began to seek the fisherman out, not for his fish, but for his counsel. They would find him on the beach in the early mornings, or at his small house in the evenings, and they would ask his advice about their troubles. A merchant who had been cheated asked the fisherman what he should do. The fisherman, remembering the genie who had learned from his mistakes, advised forgiveness and a second chance, but also wisdom and caution. The merchant followed this advice and found that the one who had cheated him became, in time, his most loyal business partner. A woman whose husband had left her asked the fisherman how to mend her broken heart. The fisherman, remembering how the genie had been trapped for so long in darkness and rage, advised her not to let bitterness become her prison. "Feel your pain," he said gently. but do not let it define you. Do not let it steal your future by chaining you to the past. The woman listened, and slowly, over time, she found her way back to joy. A young man who had made a terrible mistake and feared he could never be forgiven came to the fisherman in despair. The fisherman told him the story of the genie who had threatened death, who had been consumed by rage, but who had found his way back to goodness when shown mercy. "We are all capable of change," the fisherman said. "All of us deserve the chance to become better than we were. Seek forgiveness, but also, and this is equally important, forgive yourself." And so the fisherman became more than a fisherman. He became a teacher, a counselor, a source of wisdom for his community. But he never stopped his morning practice. Every day, he cast his net 4 times, no more, no less, and each time it brought up what was needed. The years passed, as years do, in a rhythm of seasons and tides. The fisherman's children grew from childhood to adolescence, from adolescence to adulthood. His eldest son learned the trade of fishing, though he chose to do it differently, sailing out in a boat rather than casting nets from shore. His daughter became a teacher, traveling to neighboring villages to instruct children in reading and arithmetic. His youngest child became a healer, learning the properties of plants and the arts of medicine. The fisherman himself grew older, his hair turning from black to silver, his face developing lines like the grain in weathered wood. But his hands remained strong, and his heart remained gentle, and every morning he walked to the shore to cast his blessed net into the eternal sea. He sometimes thought of the genie, wondered where the ancient being had gone, what it was doing with its freedom. He hoped it had found peace. He hoped it had discovered joy after so much suffering. He had never needed to call the genie's name 3 times at sunset. His life had been full and good without such dramatic intervention. But he kept the name in his heart, like a precious secret, a connection to something vast and mysterious and magical. One evening, many years after the morning he had freed the genie, the fisherman sat on the beach watching the sunset. He was older now, his body slower, his movements more careful. But his mind was still sharp, his spirit still strong. The sky was performing its nightly masterpiece, layers of color spreading across the heavens, clouds edged in gold, the sun sinking toward the horizon like a red gold coin dropping into an infinite well. The sea reflected all this glory, shimmering and dancing with light. The fisherman breathed deeply, feeling the peace that always came to him at this hour. The day's work was done. His net had brought up a good catch of fish, which he had sold at the market. His family was home, preparing the evening meal, their voices floating on the breeze, a sound more beautiful to him than any music. As he sat there, feeling grateful for his life, for the simple blessings that had sustained him, for the wisdom he had somehow been fortunate enough to discover, he became aware of a presence beside him. He turned, and there, sitting on the sand as if it had always been there, as if it belonged in this moment as naturally as the sunset or the waves, was the genie. But it was transformed. Gone was the terrible fury, the frightening appearance, the aura of barely contained rage. The being beside the fisherman looked calm and peaceful. It was still clearly a djinn. There was something not quite human about it, something that suggested it was made of different stuff than mortal flesh. But its face was kind, its eyes warm, its presence gentle. For a moment, neither spoke. They simply sat together, an old fisherman and an ancient djinn, watching the sun set over the eternal sea. Finally, the genie spoke, its voice soft as wind through palm trees. "Hello, old friend." The fisherman smiled. "Hello. It has been a long time." "Many years for you," the genie said. "A blink of an eye for me, but I have thought of you often in that blink. I wanted to see you again, to know how your life had unfolded. I hope you don't mind the intrusion." "Mind?" The fisherman shook his head. "I am honored. I have wondered about you too. I hoped you were well." The genie was quiet for a moment, gazing out at the water. "I have traveled. Far," it said finally. to places you cannot imagine, across deserts and mountains and seas. I have seen wonders and met beings both mortal and otherwise. I have thought deeply about who I was and who I want to be, and I have come to understand something important. "What is that?" the fisherman asked gently. The genie turned to look at him, and in its ancient eyes, the fisherman saw wisdom and peace. "I understand now that my imprisonment was not the worst thing that happened to me. The worst thing was how I chose to respond to it. I let suffering make me cruel. I let pain turn me into a monster. I forgot that even in the darkest prison, we still have choices about who we will be." The genie continued, its voice full of quiet wonder. "You showed me another way. You were threatened with death, yet you responded with cleverness rather than violence. You had me trapped, yet you chose mercy over revenge. You taught me that our circumstances do not define us, our choices do. That lesson has transformed me more than all the magic I possess." The fisherman felt warmth spread through his chest. "I am glad my choice meant something to you. In truth, I think I was just trying to survive. The wisdom came almost by accident." "The best wisdom often does," the genie said with a smile. "It comes not from planning, but from being true to our deepest nature in moments of crisis. Your deepest nature is kindness. That is a greater power than any magic." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun touched the horizon, spreading its final glory across the sky. The colors deepened, scarlet and amber, violet and deepest blue. The first stars began to appear, tiny points of silver light in the darkening east. After a while, the genie spoke again. "I came not only to see you, but to offer you something." The fisherman looked at his companion curiously. The genie gestured toward the sea, the sky, the whole world spread before them. "I can give you more, if you wish. Your blessing has served you well, but I could grant greater gifts. Long life, centuries of health and vitality, wealth beyond measure, knowledge of the hidden secrets of the universe, the power to work magic yourself. I could give you any of these things, and gladly, as thanks for what you gave me." The fisherman considered this offer, looking out at the scene before him, the glowing horizon, the darkening sea, the beach where he had walked every morning for decades, the path that led home to his family. "It is a generous offer," he said slowly, "and I thank you for it. But I think I have everything I need. My life has been a good one, not dramatic, not filled with grand adventures, but full of small joys, of love, of purpose. I have worked honestly. I have raised my children. I have helped my neighbors when I could. I have seen the sun rise thousands of times and have never grown tired of it. What more could I want?" The genie smiled, smile of such genuine warmth and respect that the fisherman felt blessed just to witness it. "You are remarkable, fisherman. Most humans, given such an offer, would grasp at immortality or power or wealth. But you understand something most never learn, that a simple life lived well is worth more than a grand life lived poorly. Still," the genie continued, "I would like to give you something. Not because you need it, but because friendship deserves recognition. May I offer you one small gift?" The fisherman nodded. "If you wish, I will accept it gladly." The genie reached out and touched the fisherman's chest, just over his heart. The touch was warm, gentle, carrying with it a sense of deep affection. "I give you this," the genie said softly. "Peace. True, deep, unshakable peace. Not as something new, but as something strengthened. The peace you have already cultivated in your heart, now anchored so deeply that nothing can disturb it. In your final days, whenever they come, you will have no fear. You will pass from this life to whatever comes next as easily as stepping from one room to another. And until that time, whatever troubles come, whatever sorrows touch your life, and they will, for such is the nature of mortal existence, beneath them all will be this foundation of peace, unchanging and eternal." The fisherman felt something settle in his chest, not a physical sensation, but something deeper, something in his very soul. It was as if a door had been opened to a room he had always sensed was there, but had never quite been able to enter. And in that room was stillness, silence, absolute and perfect peace. "Thank you," he whispered, tears gathering in his eyes. "Thank you, my friend." The genie stood, and the fisherman rose with him, his old joints creaking slightly. They faced each other, human and jinn, mortal and immortal, two beings who had met by chance and had changed each other's lives by choice. "We will not meet again in this life," the genie said gently. "I know this, as the jinn sometimes know such things, but I will carry you in my heart across all the centuries that remain to me, and when your time comes to leave this world, I will be there, not to grieve, but to celebrate, to honor the life you lived, to acknowledge the impact one simple, kind fisherman had on an ancient being who had forgotten how to hope." The fisherman embraced the genie, and the jinn returned the embrace, carefully, gently, as if the old man were made of precious porcelain. They stood like that for a long moment, two friends sharing a final goodbye. Then the genie stepped back, smiled one last time, and transformed. Not into smoke this time, but into light, pure, beautiful light that rose into the air like a released prayer. The light spread across the sky, mingling with the last rays of the setting sun, creating colors so beautiful they seemed to come from some realm beyond the earthly. And then, gradually, gently, the light faded, absorbed into the natural twilight, leaving only the memory of its brightness. The fisherman stood alone on the beach, feeling the peace in his heart, feeling gratitude beyond words. The sun had set completely now. The sky was deepening into night. Stars scattered across the heavens like seeds of light planted in dark soil. He stood there for a long time, watching the stars emerge, listening to the eternal conversation between sea and shore, feeling the peace the genie had given him settle into his bones, his blood, his very being. Finally, when the sky was fully dark and the stars were brilliant overhead, the fisherman turned and walked slowly home. The path was familiar. He could have walked it blind. His feet knew every stone, every dip and rise. This was his path, his life, his home. Inside his house, light glowed warmly from the windows. He could see silhouettes moving inside, his wife preparing the table, his children, grown now but still, his children, visiting for the evening meal. He could hear their voices, their laughter, the sounds of a family at ease with each other and with their lives. The fisherman paused at his door, his hand on the weathered wood, and felt such overwhelming gratitude that it took his breath away. "This," he thought, "this is everything. This simple house, this simple life, these people I love, this work I do, this beach where I walk each morning, this sea that provides, this sky that watches, this peace that fills me. This is everything. This is the treasure. This is the magic." He opened the door and stepped inside, into warmth and light and love, into the ordinary, extraordinary miracle of home. The years that remained to the fisherman were good years, perhaps the best of his life. The peace the genie had given him transformed everything, not by changing the external circumstances of his life, but by changing how he experienced them. When storms came, and they did come, as they come to all lives, the peace remained steady beneath them, like bedrock under churning seas. When his eldest son's fishing boat was damaged in a squall, the fisherman felt concern, but beneath it, peace. When his daughter's husband died unexpectedly, leaving her with 3 young children to raise alone, the fisherman felt grief, but beneath it, peace. When his own body began to fail, as all bodies eventually must, when his joints ached and his breath grew short and his steps became slower, the fisherman felt the discomfort, but beneath it, always beneath it, was peace. He continued his morning practice for as long as his body allowed. Each dawn, he would walk to the shore and cast his net, and it would bring up what was needed, sometimes fish, sometimes something else, always exactly right. And even when the day came when his legs could no longer carry him to the beach, when he had to pass his net to his son and stay behind, even then the peace remained. He sat in his doorway in the mornings wrapped in a blanket, watching the sun rise, and he felt no bitterness at what he could no longer do. He had done it for so many years. He had lived so fully. There was nothing to regret, nothing to mourn, only gratitude for what had been, and peace with what was. His wife tended him gently in those final months. His children visited often, bringing their own children, filling the small house with the noise and energy of new life. The fisherman would hold his grandchildren in his arms and tell them stories, stories of the sea, of the sky, of patience and kindness, of chances and choices, of magic that hides in ordinary moments. And sometimes, late at night, when everyone else was asleep, the fisherman would lie in his bed and feel the peace in his heart and think about the genie, about that strange and wonderful encounter so many years ago, about how one morning's cast of a net had changed his entire life. He wondered where the genie was now. He hoped it had found its own version of what he had found: contentment, purpose, a life worth living. He sent his thoughts out like prayers into the universe, wishing his old friend well, wherever it might be. The end, when it came, was gentle as the genie had promised it would be. It was early morning, just before dawn. The fisherman woke from sleep, and he knew, with a certainty beyond doubt, that this was his last morning. He felt no fear, only peace, and a strange excitement, as if he were about to embark on a new journey after a long and satisfying stay in one place. He rose carefully, quietly, not wanting to wake his wife sleeping beside him. He wrapped a blanket around his shoulders and walked to the door. His body was weak, but it carried him these last few steps. He opened the door and stepped outside. The world was caught in that magical moment between night and day, when darkness is just beginning to soften, when the first birds are starting to sing, when the air is cool and fresh and full of possibility. The fisherman walked slowly down his familiar path toward the beach. Each step was an effort, but also a gift. One more step on this earth, one more moment of being alive. He could smell the salt air, he could hear the waves, he could feel the sand beneath his feet as he reached the shore. He stood at the edge of the water, exactly where he had stood so many thousands of times before, and he looked out at the sea. The horizon was beginning to glow with the promise of sunrise. The sky was shifting from black to deep blue, from deep blue to violet, from violet to rose. And then, as he had known it would be, the genie was there beside him. Not manifested in physical form, the fisherman could not see it with his eyes, but he felt its presence as clearly as he felt the breeze on his face, the sand beneath his feet. He felt its love, its respect, its gratitude. He felt it keeping the promise it had made, to be there at the end, to celebrate rather than grieve. "Hello, old friend," the fisherman said softly, speaking to the presence he could feel but not see. He felt the genie's response, not in words, but in a wave of warmth and affection that wrapped around him like an embrace. "I am ready," the fisherman said. "I am not afraid. You gave me that gift, peace beyond fear. Thank you for that. Thank you for everything." He stood there, wrapped in peace, wrapped in the invisible presence of his friend, watching the sun rise one last time. The light grew stronger, brighter, spreading across the sky in waves of gold and amber and rose. It touched the water, turned it to liquid gold, turned the whole world into light. And the fisherman felt himself becoming part of that light, felt the boundaries of his body beginning to dissolve, felt himself expanding into something larger, something that was not confined to one small form. He was the light, he was the sea, he was the sky, he was the breath of wind and the songs of birds and the eternal rolling of waves against shore. He was everything and nothing. He was ending and beginning. He was dying and being born. His body remained standing on the beach for one more moment, held up by something beyond physical strength. Then, gently, as softly as a sigh, It folded down onto the sand, empty now, a shell left behind by the tide. And his spirit, his soul, his essence, whatever part of him was truly him, rose into the light, carried by invisible hands that held him with infinite tenderness, borne upward on wings of peace toward whatever comes next, toward the mystery that waits beyond the horizon of life. The genie remained on the beach, invisible, honoring its promise. It did not grieve. The fisherman would not have wanted that. Instead, it celebrated a life well lived, a soul well tended, a journey well completed. As the sun fully rose, bathing the beach in golden light, the genie transformed one last time into a shower of gentle, glowing particles that scattered across the shore, across the water, across the sky, a blessing, a thank you, a final gift of beauty to mark the passing of a simple fisherman who had taught an ancient jinn the true meaning of freedom and mercy and grace. The day continued, the world turned, the waves rolled in and rolled out, eternal and unchanging. And on the beach, where the fisherman had stood for so many mornings, where he had cast his net and met a genie and changed the course of his life with a single choice to show mercy, the sand held his imprint for a little while, the shape of his feet, the place where his body had rested. But gradually, inevitably, the tide came in and washed it all smooth, returning the beach to its pristine emptiness, leaving no trace. Except for the story. The story remained. The fisherman's family found him there at sunrise, and though they grieved, they also felt a strange peace about his passing. He looked calm, even happy, and the place where he lay seemed somehow blessed, somehow sacred, though they could not have said why. They buried him with honor, and the whole village came to pay respects, for he had been loved by many. And at the funeral, people told stories he had told them, lessons he had taught, wisdom he had shared. And the story of the fisherman and the genie was told and retold, passed from mouth to mouth, from generation to generation. The fisherman's children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren all heard the story. They learned from it. They tried to live by its lessons, to show mercy even when anger would be easier, to give second chances even when vengeance would be more satisfying, to recognize that we all deserve the opportunity to become better than we were. And sometimes, late at night, some of those descendants would walk down to the beach where their ancestor had walked so many mornings, and they would stand at the edge of the sea and look out at the horizon, and they would whisper, "Thank you," to thee, waves in the sky. Thank you for the life he lived. Thank you for the story he left behind. Thank you for the magic that touched his life and, through him, touched theirs. And far away, in places beyond mortal knowledge, in realms where the jinn dwell and other beings stranger still, the genie would sometimes pause in whatever it was doing and think of the fisherman. And it would smile, a smile of love and gratitude and remembrance, and it would send a thought out across the vast distances that separate the worlds. Thank you, old friend. Thank you for your mercy. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for showing me that true magic lies not in power, but in kindness. Thank you for your simple, beautiful life. I carry you in my heart, and I will carry you forever. And so the story ends, as all stories must, with both an ending and a beginning, the end of one life, the beginning of a legacy, the end of a friendship between mortal and immortal, the beginning of a tale that would be told forever. The fisherman passed from the world, but what he taught remained. The genie continued its long existence, forever changed by one encounter on a beach, one choice to show mercy, one moment when everything could have gone differently, but didn't. And on that beach, the sea continues to roll in and roll out, carrying its mysteries, holding its secrets, whispering its eternal stories to anyone patient enough to listen. And now, dear listener, our story draws to its close, like the tide drawing back from the shore, like the light fading from the sky, like your own breath slowing and deepening as you drift toward sleep. You have traveled with the fisherman on his journey, From that first morning when he cast his net and pulled up a brass vessel, through his encounter with the genie, through his choice to show mercy, through all the years that followed, through the peace and wisdom that shaped his life, all the way to his gentle passing and the legacy he left behind. And, perhaps in this story, there is something for you as well. Perhaps you too have pulled up unexpected catches from the waters of your life. Surprises, both pleasant and unpleasant, challenges you never anticipated, gifts you never expected. Perhaps you too have faced choices between mercy and vengeance, between kindness and anger, between wisdom and pride. Perhaps you too are learning that true treasure lies not in gold or power, but in peace, in love, in lives well lived, and kindness freely given. Perhaps you too are discovering that even the simplest life, a life of work and family, of ordinary days and small joys, can be magical when lived with intention and grace. And now, as the story ends, let yourself settle more deeply into rest. Let your breathing slow, natural and easy, like the rhythm of waves against shore. Let your body relax, releasing all tension, all holding, all effort. Let your mind grow quiet, peaceful, drifting like a boat on calm water. Feel yourself sinking deeper into comfort, deeper into stillness. The day is done, the story is told. There is nothing left to do now but rest. Let the images from the story drift through your awareness like clouds across a sky. The fisherman casting his net, the brass vessel gleaming in the sun, the genie rising in a column of smoke, the moment of mercy, the years of peace, the gentle ending, the light at sunrise. Let these images fade and blur, becoming softer, more distant, like memories of dreams. Let them carry you gently toward sleep, toward that deep and healing darkness where your mind and body renew themselves, where consciousness rests and restoration begins. Feel yourself held safely, as the fisherman was held by invisible hands at the end of his life. Feel yourself surrounded by peace, as he was surrounded by the peace the genie had given him. Feel yourself loved, cherished, blessed, as every soul is loved and cherished and blessed, though we sometimes forget. There is nothing to fear. There is nothing to worry about. All is well. All is as it should be. You are exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you need to do, which is simply this: resting, breathing, releasing, letting go. The world will be there tomorrow. Your tasks will be there tomorrow. Your life will be there tomorrow, waiting for you, ready to be lived. But tonight you rest. Tonight you sleep. Tonight you release the day that is past and trust that tomorrow will take care of itself. Let your breath deepen. Let it flow slowly in, slowly out, natural as the tide, effortless as the breeze. Count your breaths if it helps. One breath in, one breath out, one breath closer to sleep. Or simply let them come and go without counting, without thinking, without doing anything at all. Feel your body growing heavier, sinking into the bed, into the pillows, into the mattress that supports you. Feel gravity gently pulling you down, anchoring you to the earth, holding you safe. Your feet are heavy, relaxed, peaceful. Your legs are heavy, relaxed, peaceful. Your arms lie still, hands softly curled, all tension released. Your shoulders drop, your neck releases, your face softens into an expression of absolute peace. And your mind, your busy, wonderful mind that has traveled through this story, that thinks so many thoughts, that solves so many problems, your mind, too, can rest now. Let the thoughts that arise simply drift by, like clouds across the sky, like boats on the horizon. You don't need to follow them. You don't need to engage with them. Just watch them come, watch them go, and let them fade into the darkness. The darkness is your friend. The darkness is where rest lives. The darkness is soft and welcoming and safe. Let yourself sink into it, like sinking into deep, warm water. like floating on a calm sea under a sky full of stars. Somewhere, in a world far away, a fisherman once stood on a beach and made a choice that changed everything. He chose mercy, he chose wisdom, he chose peace. And those choices echoed forward through time, touching lives he would never meet, telling a story that would be passed down through generations, creating ripples that would never stop spreading. And you too, you have choices ahead of you. Tomorrow, and the next day, and all the days after that. Choices about who you will be, how you will live, what you will value, how you will treat others and yourself. But those choices are for tomorrow. Tonight, the only choice you need to make is to rest, to sleep, to heal, to renew. And so, gentle traveler, our journey together comes to an end. The story is told. The fisherman has lived his life and passed on. The genie has found its freedom and its peace. And you have listened. You have traveled with them. You have perhaps learned something valuable, or perhaps simply enjoyed a story well told. Now sleep comes to claim you, gently, inevitably, like the tide coming in. You have resisted long enough. You have stayed awake long enough. Now is the time to surrender, to release, to let yourself drift away into the deep and healing darkness of sleep. May your dreams be peaceful. May your rest be deep. May you wake tomorrow refreshed and renewed, carrying with you whatever gifts this story has offered, whatever lessons it has taught, whatever peace it has invited into your heart. May you remember that magic is real, but it lives in kindness, not in spells. May you remember that treasure is real, but it lives in relationships, not in gold. May you remember that you are valuable, not for what you accomplish or achieve, but simply for being exactly who you are, a unique, irreplaceable soul on a journey through this beautiful, mysterious world. Sleep now, dear one. Sleep deeply. Sleep peacefully. Let the fisherman's peace become your peace. Let his story become your lullaby. Let the rhythm of waves on a distant shore carry you into sleep, into dreams, into the deep renewal that every body and soul needs. The sea whispers its blessing. The stars shine their silent approval. The world sleeps with you, turning slowly through the night, carrying you safely toward morning. But morning is far away. The night stretches ahead, full of rest, full of possibility, full of the deep healing darkness that restores all things. Sleep, sleep, sleep. And remember, as you drift away, you are safe, you are loved, you are enough, you are exactly who you were always meant to be. And like the fisherman at the end of his journey, you are held by invisible hands, carried by invisible wings, blessed by forces you cannot see but can always feel, if you are quiet enough, if you are still enough, if you are peaceful enough to notice. Good night, gentle traveler. May your sleep be deep. May your dreams be sweet. May you wake tomorrow to cast your own nets into the mysterious waters of life, trusting that they will bring up exactly what you need. Sleep, sleep, sleep.